So in the interest of taking these lessons and sort of bring them down to earth, so to speak, for us, we've asked a panel today of our very own graduates. And we have 3 people. We have Amanda Rockler, who works for is a watershed restoration specialist with the Maryland Sea Grant Extension Program at the University of Maryland. That's all the introduction. We have Rasma Plato, who is one of 2 designers on John Shorb landscaping staff. We have Jeff Potter, who is a principal in his own landscape construction company. So as a beginning, I'm going to be mindful of the time here, so I'm really going to keep us as much as possible to sort of 1 or 2 minutes in our responses. So please excuse me if I interrupt. But I'd like each of you to give us, just in a small nutshell, some information about your company and what you do beyond the very quick introduction that I gave you. So Amanda, would you like to begin?
Okay, can you hear me okay on this mic?
No. No.
Put it a little closer. How about now?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. So, hi, great to see everyone today, and I'm happy to talk to everyone at the networking session. I'll stay after. So I work for the University of Maryland. I work for the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources in a program called Sea Grant Extension, so the titles get very long. And so really my role is urban stormwater, and I'm working on water quality and water quantity issues. And so my role is to work with researchers and scientists at the university and translate that science that's happening into the community. So I work at the local level. I work with local governments, nonprofits, residents that are interested in installing stormwater practices and improving watershed restoration. And so that comes down to doing a myriad of things, including technical assistance, some design work, some project management, some, grants, capacity, education. And I think what's important about that is that to get effective stormwater in the ground, which we'll probably talk about here, all of those components are an essential part of it. So I don't think that one part really makes up a comprehensive stormwater program, but rather all the pieces. So that's just a brief introduction.
Thank you. Rasma.
Hi, I'm Rasma Plato from John Shorb Landscaping. We're a full-service design-build firm, and I want to point out the other designers here too, Marisa, if you're here. We have government contracts that we work on. We do residential, and the 3 divisions are government, maintenance, and landscape installation. Not only do I do the designs, but we've got crews that we've got to manage. I'll go out to sites. I'll help them lay out projects, put out plans. We've got a whole range of services that we provide.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Potter, and I work with J&G Landscape Design in Spencerville, Maryland. And I've been there since 1989. We're a residential design build firm. That's what we do. We do residential design build. It's about a 35 to 40 person company. And we run 8 crews in construction, 1 crew in maintenance. So pretty much everything's focused on landscape design and install.
Great, and I think you've heard from Shu-Fang, so we'll well, so let me go on to the next question. I think all of you have been working with low-impact design in one capacity or another, as we just heard. I'd like to hear a little bit about how you got, when your company started, got into doing low-impact design work, and what percentage of your work is in that area now. Start with Amanda again.
Great. So since I work for the university, obviously it's a large institute with lots of moving parts, but so there's different colleges that have been doing LID work for a long time. And my program was created about 2009 when I actually graduated from this program, and my position was created at the university to really start putting an emphasis on low-impact design at the local level and work in the community. And so it's fairly new in our program area, and the concentration was really, the motivation behind the position was a need on the horizon for consistent help at the local level for design of these LID practices, and looking into the future about what that means for looking at water quality issues and meeting Bay TMDL, total maximum daily load, and water quality implementation plans in the future. And so the local governments and the Department of Natural Resources and the University of Maryland and some other folks got together and decided that these positions were really important to be spread around the state, to be part of an effort that works with folks to help spread putting in the practice of stormwater work. So that's kind of where we got to start. And 100% of my work and my 4 other colleagues around the state is in stormwater LID implementation. And a lot of it is small scale implementation that we focus on.
I'd have to say in our company, we're probably closer to maybe 40% that are just LID projects, which would be rain gardens, installing cisterns attached to irrigation systems. But I've got to say, every time I meet with a client, even if they're not looking for those features, I see everything through that lens. I'm always looking to see what's going on with the water, so that even though they may not be specifically requesting a rain garden, or they don't want to capture their roof water to use it for irrigation, I'm looking to see where that water is going, and I don't want it going out to the curb, going down the drain someplace. So even though it may not be one of those projects, that's the way we're looking at things.
The way that we got started in LIDs is kind of a roundabout way, as most things in my life are. I was very fortunate to help build the Sniper project down at Brookside Gardens, which is in Montgomery County, where I grew up, and I've always been kind of attached to Brookside Gardens, growing up right by there. So back then the economy was good, and I approached Phil Normandy about making another donation to Brookside, and put me in his golf cart and rode me around and said, we want to build a rain garden here. He'd show me a few projects. I'm like, I wouldn't do that one. He's like, do you know what a rain garden is? I said, I have no idea, but I'm assuming that you do. And he did, and they had people on staff. He really didn't know that much. They had engineers that worked on it, so we committed to building that project. And all in all, it's a 2-month project for 5 men every day. It's a big, tearing out walkways, walls, taking out the old pond they had, putting in the rain guards and the permeable pavers. And I would say that that's really kind of where I caught the bug. And then being a principal in the firm, it's something, a direction we like. It's kind of become a culture within the company. And I would say for us right now is on every project, just like Rasma, we bring the LID to the project. We're always looking for ways to do something better. And I've been in the industry full time since 1989, and this is a newer thing for me and for the firm. So we've got a lot of things that we've done in the past that maybe we're looking to do better in the future. So we try to bring it to every project. And I do find that most of the clients are willing to do things if the value's there, and they're willing to spend a little bit more money to do the right thing for the environment. So that's how we approach it.
So I guess everybody's more interested in the Holland partnership. I'm going to speak about them. So basically, I would say 100% of the projects in the office, we strive for LID practice. Of course, Laurie Owen, he is the pioneer of landscape architecture. So I think in the 80s when we first started Johnson & Johnson's headquarters, he was already kind of implementing some similar idea in terms of stormwater management. So he created some sort of retention pond that's also picturesque, landscaping, very beautiful looking, but in a way is helping the environment, the sustainable aspect of the design. So again, Holland Partnership is kind of a company who also we do a lot of public project like the universities, Columbus Circle, that kind of project. So it's public projects, a lot of liabilities and other aspects about it. So they do kind of look at the project in many, from many angles. So sometimes it's not entirely, 100% of, what we wanted in terms of sustainability. But again, every project that we're doing, they always, try and strive for that kind of goal.
Thank you. So as we, just looking over the past few years, where the whole idea of LIDs for, at least in the residential arena, seemed to be rain garden. We're going to talk about the rain garden maybe, is that a good idea? But just hearing you speak for the past few minutes, it's clear that the practice has gone from those isolated little thoughts about how to capture a little bit of stormwater to something that is a lot more broadly applied. Regulations are galloping ahead on this all around us. Have you seen the practice of LIDs become more artful, as we've seen today? In your experience, do you see that progression from sort of simple little, mechanical solutions to a more artful approach? And how do you see that moving ahead? Who'd like to tackle that one first?
I'll go. Well, in every project, I think it's important that it is attractive. Some of the projects I work on, there are multiple partners. It's not just the homeowner or apartment owner or building owner. It's also the designer and frequently a third party. And they all have to work together. It's a team effort. But ultimately, it comes down to the homeowner having to maintain it. Do you think they're going to maintain something that is unattractive, that they don't like? Or are they going to maintain something that they do like? And another thing to look at is often, not only are we capturing stormwater, we have the opportunity to solve a problem that the homeowner is having in their landscape. Maybe it's a grading problem. The water's all flowing towards their house. Maybe the downspouts are clogged and backing up next to the house, causing water to go in the basement. We can take that water, pipe it away from there, have it go to a rain garden, have it go to a cistern or a dry well. There are many opportunities to get the homeowner buy-in so that they'll be happy with the results, they'll be maintaining it. And looking at the artful part of it, I think everything's got to be attractive looking. You can't put in something ugly because then people won't like it. And I think that's always been my take on it, is trying to get something that's going to look good.
So I guess you can see there's a lot of things going on, even like LID tree pit. We can see a lot going on in Seattle, Philadelphia, and Chicago. So I think the trend is there. Every landscape architect is trying to make your project not just beautiful but also sustainable. However, I think the regulation is kind of catching up. That's how I feel. For instance, for Canal Park. At that point, we actually couldn't get the credits in terms of LID tree pit. We did collect waters, from the street, and so the water get into the tree pit and then get filtration. But at that point, there wasn't a clear regulation that talk about, how do we achieve that and how does it work. And that was 2011, and I believe there's a draft that came out in March 2013 that talks about the LID tree pit regulations. So I think the trend is there, but just it's a lot of catching up, and also I guess especially on the regulation side, we're still trying to figure out what is the standard when they set a number. How do they set that number? I guess it is difficult, but definitely there's a lot of work to do.
Setting the standards, that's definitely a big question.
Yeah.
So I echo what these two have said, but I really can't stress enough the change in aesthetic perception about what is beautiful to people. And so for the longest time, residents have loved their lawns, and they really, and so part of it is that education component about working with folks to say, well, what space do you need, for your kids and your dog, and not eliminating all the things, and working within their life to create this aesthetically beautiful treatment train of practices, which we're seeing more and more. And so we don't just see, an offshoot of a one LID project put in the ground anymore. We're starting to see these holistic sites that are really functional to the person, aesthetic, and treating all of the stormwater on the site. And so I think that's where we're going in the future. We're going to see more and more of those. There's so much potential right now for creativity and innovation in this field. I mean, I can't say enough. Over the past 5 years, we've skyrocketed into a whole new element of where we are in terms of stormwater. So it's a really exciting time to be involved with that. And so I can't say enough. If you have great ideas about sustainability and stormwater and what that means to you, then I would pursue all of those avenues, because it's really open for the field right now.
I just graduated the program in December, so I technically, as a designer, haven't started designing LIDs for my clients, because I felt like even though I built them for a number of years, I didn't understand the science and the math and all the calculations behind them. And I wasn't willing to copy something that I learned from someone else and just put it onto a plan. But I've been extremely fortunate. I've been building LIDs for some amazing designers for 8 or 10 years now, and the stuff that I've seen and the stuff that they design and we're able to build with their guidance has been, it's absolutely amazing. It is so cool. And for me, what's so nice is I'm so fortunate because I'm working with so many different designers, building their projects and helping their visions come to life based on my construction experience, and it's amazing what I see. I mean, I've done municipal, rooftop, playgrounds, residential projects. A lot of these designers, every designer is a little bit different, is a little cutting edge in their own way in what they use, and together with that and the construction experience that we have, we're able to put the two together. So I've seen some great things. I mean, it's amazing, some of the stuff we get to build. It's so cool, and I've done this since 1989. I've worked in the field for 15 years with the shovel, full time. So to come in, you get used to digging tree holes and putting in patios and walkways. But to come in and use reclaimed lumber and build natural play spaces and stuff like that, take a parking lot out and keep all the water, make a place, it's amazing what we get to do. So I've seen some really neat stuff. As far as regulations, how they've progressed, it scares me to death because we work in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, and then within each jurisdiction, there's different regulations. So when you go out and you see a client, they ask you a question, you almost don't want to answer your mouth because you don't know how quickly it's changed. And so you're, well, it's an ever-changing target, but we'll work on that. So I'm a little tentative on that one. And then for practices in the future, the one thing that I'm a little bit leery of, just from being a contractor for so long, is sometimes things that are presented to contractors as the latest, greatest thing are presented by the supplier who wants to sell the stuff, not really thinking long term, though they'll stamp sustainable and recycled on anything. So I'm a little bit skeptic of things until I see them in the field and see them used a number of times successfully before I'll really kind of stand behind it and say this is a good thing. So the regulation scares me, and the products almost seem to come out and fill a need before they're tested or thought all the way through, and that scares me a little bit on the contracting side.
Very good advice. Thank you. So, from what you're saying, there should be jobs in this area. If not now, where are we going with jobs in this area, and what will it take to compete in this new arena as landscape designers?
All right, so absolutely there will be jobs in this sector. I don't know when. That is something that we keep talking about. So we're offering all this green training, but the jobs aren't quite there yet. So one thing I can stress is that installation, design, and maintenance of these practices is right now few and far between. 48% of Severn River's rain gardens are failing. That's not good. Okay, and that's an average number across the board of what we're getting. And so we want to look at, people coming out of this program really have an advantage when you get out into the field because it's something that we learn in the program, and they can continue to learn those skills, and so be really reputable when you get out into the field. And so that is really an important skill set to have, is an understanding of the LID practices, an understanding of who you can partner with. And that's important because, as designers, we only have a certain skill set that's very valuable, but we're not engineers in most cases. We're not planners in most cases. We're not artists in most cases. So working with all of those in collaboration can provide some really great strengths to projects, and also potential, new jobs and new forays that are out there in the field. And so I think if anyone's interested right now in stormwater maintenance, that's what you should start your business in, because we need a lot of work.
There's definitely jobs out there. There's jobs. There's jobs all over. You just look at what it's a big industry. For me, I was a residential guy. I've been a residential guy since 1989, and that's where I'm going to stay. It's what I like to do. And then, like this project is beautiful, and I would never want to build that job in 1,000 years. But for me, it's just my personality type. When we go into a project, 95% of that project is going to be done with people on staff. So we're in control of the situation, we're in control of the schedule, and we schedule things out. And if we hit that piece of canal stone and we have to stop, that's not good for my personality type. It just doesn't work for me. So you have to really look at the industry and define what segment of the industry you want to be in, whether it be a supplier, a manufacturer, a vendor, residential, commercial, state, whatever you want to do. But there's jobs out there, and the only thing that I've been around for a while, and in the green industry, when something becomes, if a lot of people perceive people are doing a lot of work and making money with something, a lot of people want to jump on the bandwagon. Like everyone was an environmental company in the late 80s, early 90s, but most of them didn't know what it meant other than saying that we do environmental work. And it changes around. So when you look and you interview firms, the skill set that you have is very desirable, but make sure your core values are aligned with the leadership of the firm, that they really believe in this and they're going in the right way. They're just not putting you on staff to put your credentials on and then say, hey, we're going to go do things the way we used to do it to curb cuts and vent drain pipes. So you really have to look deep in, because there's not that many people out there with the education and knowledge that we all have from the program. But you're going to have to look and find, if you want to go into contracting, someone that's really passionate and really cares about the bigger picture. So that's what my advice would be.
So just add what Amanda and Jeff was talking about. So I really think you need to look at yourself honestly. What's your passion? And you have to just follow your passion and really continue to refine your skills. For instance, opposite to what Jeff was saying, that for Canal Park, if I didn't have passion and to build a product like that, I would have stopped or left the job, in the middle of the whole process. So you gotta have that kind of drive to be able to continue and overcome a lot of obstacles and late night, and no family dinner, or sometimes you have to skip this and that. So I just think it's important to follow that. And of course, you guys have a great program here, and that's a very core skill set you have. So how do you use your skill set you already have and extend to that and build upon that foundation? I think that's very important as well.
And I'd like to add on to that, many people in the program have come from other jobs. I don't think anybody went to become a landscape designer straight out of high school. You've been doing other things before you entered this program. Those are very important skills that can be brought to the job. There are many ancillary jobs. You don't have to be a landscape designer at a company that does design build. There are other agencies that you can work with. If you want to work independently, I see Mary's here. We've installed some of her jobs for her. Talk about artistic, there have been some real interesting ones. You can work independently. You can work with some of these agencies like the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay and the Cassia Watershed Society. There are so many opportunities in local governments as well. There are even going a little bit further, we were talking about regulations and how things are built and how everything's changing. I'm looking at the way houses are being constructed in Montgomery County. They're supposed to be controlling the stormwater on site, but yet I look at how the construction is happening, how the soil is compacted, disturbed, how there's fill brought in, and then dry wells, rain gardens are being constructed on top of this and not infiltrating into the groundwater. Gee, I wonder why. So there are opportunities for helping some of those maybe requirements evolve and develop and become better. I think that's the thing, is what can you do with your skill set to make things better?
Thank you. That's a very, very nice point to end these questions with. But I'm sure that you all have questions for our panelists, so let me open it up to questions. And I see CJ's hand, Arthur.
I just wanted to follow up on what y'all said. This is a really critical time because there are non-believers out there. There are people who don't think this works. Many of them are engineers who, you know, I've sat in meetings and they said, okay, CJ, tell me how much does a 2-inch red maple evapotranspirate in a year go? And I'm like, that's not the point. And the critical, you know, the critical part about it is, yes, it's exciting to be in this time. In Maryland, it's all regulatory now. We went from, you know, let's clean up the Chesapeake Bay. Wouldn't that be a great idea? To now you've got to clean up the Chesapeake Bay. If you see something, say something is really important right now. If you see that something's not being installed correctly, you've got to speak up and say this is being done incorrectly. Because the problem is the industry has not caught up with the learning curve yet. So the typical landscape companies that, you know, are doing design build work or, you know, mobile and go maintenance, they don't have the skill sets to do this kind of work. But you know what? They're bidding on it, they're getting those contracts, and then they're kind of scratching their heads and going, I don't know what to do. And if those projects fail, the whole idea of low impact development is going to get a tarnished reputation. And that's what worries me the most, is that, you know, this whole idea is going to get thrown out, and in 20 years we'll be back to pipe and pond. And, you know, I don't want to see that happen. So all of us, I think, have an obligation to say, this isn't being done right, this isn't designed right. You know, I've been known to be walking down the street and go, you know, you really need to stop doing that. And my last point is soil compaction. Soil is a valuable resource that we do not take care of at all. Strip everything off, throw it off to the side or sell it, compact the heck out of what's left, and then go in and try to get plants to grow. So that's my soapbox, but it is a very exciting time, and we need to take the mantle of obligation here and say, we've got to make this work.
Thank you. Thank you, CJ. Questions? Yes.
In response to what I was a toxicologist in the water program at EPA for 23 years before I entered this program. And I cannot tell you about how happy I am to see the efforts that people are making from low impact development and water quality management. But one of the things, I mean, for every regulation, there's guidelines. And one of the things that I have found in doing residential work as a designer is I'm not sure which guideline to use when doing rain gardens or even green roofs and things like that. And I think the regulations are important, but that's not what we really go to. What we go to are the guidelines, because the guidelines are usually written, they're still from the regulation. So I know that in DC there's, for rain gardens, they refer, the website refers us to one of the land grant universities. I can't remember which one it is. Amanda, you may know it. It might be Wisconsin or Minnesota.
Minnesota, I think.
For rain gardens.
Yeah. So I can touch on that briefly, and that is a huge issue. So we've been talking about this a lot. There's so many specs out there and standards out there, and how do you know? And it gets confusing. And you know, CJ mentioned you got the mow blow guys who are out there and saying, I can install a rain garden. Well, okay, that's a little scary, because you're right. We want this to have, you know, this is the approach we're taking. towards getting cleaner water quality, towards getting more beautiful practices, we need them to work, right? And so the specs, at least for Maryland, we've been working with Chesapeake Bay Program and Tom Schuler's Chesapeake Stormwater Network to develop the homeowner standards. And that'll be the Bay program-wide standards for what these homeowner practices look like. And so
This is the federal government paid program?
this is the EPA Bay program. So we're working with Tom now on developing that handbook, and not saying that that's going to be the end-all be-all, but at least that means the Bay program will credit those practices. So you'll get a certain nutrient reduction by following this criteria that he's outlined in the homeowner manual. So we're working on that now. It'll be out anytime. It's in draft form still. So that may help a little bit, but you know, part of the program is in the tools class and the sustainable portion. I mean, Lauren and whoever's teaching that will go over, you know, the calculations for rain gardens and make sure that they're functional. And so there is that component as well that you'll learn in school. And Rasma has it.
Right, but the people who aren't willing to go back and take more courses themselves,
Yeah.
it would be nice to have some reference.
Yeah. And I'll share that information with Adele, and she can pass it out. Yeah.
Lauren? So, just to be clear, if anybody missed the flyer that's outside, and this may address some of your concerns before this, what Amanda's working on gets put out, we are having a regulative panel on February 22nd as a part of our tools course, which anybody that's in this room is invited to, and at large invited to, that's a kind of a community member, part of the family of GW. And the regulators panel is going to be a 2-hour session with representatives from Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, Arlington County. We've invited Prince George's and we've invited Fairfax County. They have not accepted our invitation yet. But if you want to come and ask your questions, or if you want to come and really kind of pick the brains of the folks that are reviewing plans and listen to their presentation about what they're expecting for small-scale residential design, you are welcome to come to the Ballston campus Saturday, February 22nd from 1 to 3, and the flyers are outside, you know, for you to pick up so that you can see. We're asking you to RSVP, but we'd love to have you. We'd love to have the numerous questions.
Yes?
Also, I work with, my name's Andy, and I work with the Department of the Environment. We actually are developing a guidebook. It's called the Green Area Ratio, GAR guidebook, and it has very specific, detailed guidelines for installing different
This
things.
is kind of new, isn't it?
It is, it's actually it was put out like a month ago.
Right.
So we've been working on it for about 6 months,
Right.
and I've revised some of it, and we've got everything working on it. So there's very consistent set guidelines. They're trying to achieve different sort of stormwater either regulation or trying to go above and beyond to earn credits in the
I don't think I can emphasize enough, it's in the soils. It's really disturbing for me to hear Amanda say that 48% rain gardens are failing. I think of the rain gardens that we've built, what's our fail rate? Less than 1%, I'd say. Because you've got to understand what the soil is doing. You can't put a rain garden in if it's not going to be infiltrating. If you do have bad soil and it can't infiltrate, there are other things that can be done to at least slow down the water, cool it down, and clean it. Sometimes that's all that can be done on a site. But it's important to try and do something that the soils are so important.
Yeah, Adele, this goes back to Andy. He works for DC and environmental, and they're putting out a handbook. It kind of goes hand in hand. Is DC talking to Arlington County or to Fairfax? Is there any sort of standard that's going to happen versus, you know, there needs to be a base to start with, and then I can see unique things because of areas and so forth. Bring that out as a question.
Well, Andy, do you know, can you tell us whether you're talking to other
I'm not
counties?
exactly sure. I think through the Council of Governments COGS group, I think they're looking at some of this. We're looking at the Chesapeake program people, but I'm not in on that.
The difficulty is that the regulations are different in every jurisdiction. In Maryland, they're going to be much more stringent. DC's green area ratio, we're actually looking at it in Shorb County to try to adopt that urban model because we're so suburban and trying to shift to a more urban model. Virginia doesn't require this kind of stormwater management yet. We're hoping that'll happen soon. So I think that's the difficulty. I think some of the design principles are universal. You know, you got to check the soil. Do you need to do an under drain? You know, what works in that particular area? You know, in our area we've got coastal plain and Piedmont. Very different soil conditions, very different underlying situations. So there's some standard design things, but you know, everything really comes down to the site and the particular site characteristics.
And budget. You talked about budget earlier, how it was so important to stay on budget. There was a rain garden that I put in when Montgomery County Rainscapes came out to look at it. They told me it was not sized large enough for the site, for what the amount of water going into it. And I said, I know, but the clients cannot afford to have a rain garden that's half the size of her backyard because all of her neighbors are pointing their downspouts at her. But, so we put in a smaller rain garden, and it is helping, it is doing something. Yes, it wasn't sized to the size it should have been, but it's really doing a lot of work.
When you said that, that triggered something for me that I found interesting in terms of drainage of neighbors. I guess it's legal for people to drain onto other people's property.
Up to a point.
Yeah.
What's not legal is for somebody to bring their drain pipe across their property line to somebody else's. But there's nothing we can do about an uphill area that drains into your site, but still it's on water. You had a question up there?
Yes, you mentioned the challenge to get the people, the owner of the place that you build, the structures that are like a rain garden or a rooftop, a green rooftop to be maintained so they don't fail. How much is it easier to just treat the problem water through pervious surfaces in the area that already exists on site on most projects so the water gets infiltrated without requiring too much plant maintenance to be complex or water management in a pond or things like that? Do you think that pervious surfaces require less maintenance or more viable long term?
Oh, pervious surfaces?
Yes.
They require their own type of maintenance. It's different from rain garden maintenance. But with pervious surfaces as well, we wanted to try and get that infiltration. You've got to have the good soils underneath. Pervious surfaces are more expensive. Pervious paver, any kind of paver, pervious or not, is going to be much more expensive than just plopping down, let's say, a concrete sidewalk. And we get back to the budget question. Sometimes it's going to be less expensive to put in a rain garden than to put in pervious pavement. But I think the maintenance depends on what the owner is willing to do, on how the site needs to be used. It's really difficult for me to answer that question without knowing a lot of other factors involved.
In a residential setting, I don't think the LIDs increase your maintenance costs at all. I'd say they decrease them in the long term.
When you count maintaining lawns.
Oh, yeah,
The cost of maintaining lawns.
It's way down.
We have time for like one more question.
This is about the soil question and maybe the guidelines. It seems like people want to plant the trees or they want to do native plants, but then if you tell them you've got to compact the soil and you're going to have to rip it first for the trees to actually survive, the disconnect for people to understand how important the soils are and how might that be reflected in guidelines to encourage people to really think about the soil treatments before they do some of these things and see the importance of it. To be able to sell it to your client.
I think maybe educating. This week I gave a talk to a garden club, and and I was showing them pictures of compacted soil and what happens. I was showing them what happens when you've got runoff and there's stream erosion. And the ladies got it. They understood. And as I give more and more of these, I'm seeing people know what a rain garden is. I've gone from, what's a rain garden, to, oh, I've got one, or we have one in our neighborhood, or I think people are becoming more educated and they're getting it. I think the clients that maybe want their hedges shaped into little balls or squares are becoming a thing of the past. They're not with it. I think the people that are more cutting edge, more progressive, are really embracing these features.
And on another note, whenever we do a project on either a new home or like a residential renovation, I find it very easy to explain the process of subsoil decompaction, because they just finished construction, the loader tracks are everywhere, and we've never had a problem with the client going back through a site and doing subsoil decompaction in all the areas where there was disturbance. When you're planting one tree in a yard, it's kind of hard to say we're going to tear your whole yard up. We'll just dig a larger pit and do more backfill and put a bigger hole in and give the tree a better chance to go. But if you've ever had a situation where it's a renovation or new construction, you can just look out the window and say, yeah, we got a problem here.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your great questions. I'm sorry,
I was just going to say, I can't emphasize the education enough, and someone who's done really great research on this his name is Stu Schwartz. He's out of UMBC. He's a soils guy, and he looks at soil compaction and design work, and his work is really great. And I do think that that soil compaction is starting to be addressed. People are getting, in Baywise, if any of you are familiar with the Baywise program, that's one of the credits you can now get is amending your soil, and so they're starting to have the conversation about it. So I just think it's similar to the rain garden conversation. They start to become normal terms in our vocabulary.
Thank you so much. Trying to keep on time here. Thank you very much for giving us your time this afternoon and participating in this conversation. Thank you.
And we have two quick things before I hear a lot of stomachs growling, and I know that a lot of folks are parched, so we have delicious food, tasty beverages. I do want to quickly thank our panelists on behalf of the College of Professional Studies. I know we have some alumni on the panel, they may already have one of these portfolios, but you're so special you get a second.